Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I am Sean Butler. It's Tuesday night. It's late. It's 11:30 right now. This won't be up until about midnight. So for those of you that are in the other parts of the world, maybe America or the Australian side of the fan base, you might see this before the rest of you. Lucky lot will wake up tomorrow morning. But Tottenham Hotspur are linked with Dominic Solanke, and it's late today, late tonight. The story has just broken via Sky Sports that are talking about the Sun that have released the exclusive that Tottenham are interested in having a late £50 million bid for Dominic Solanke. Let's have a little look-see at what the Sun are or is saying. Here we go. It says Tottenham are considering a late swoop for Bournemouth striker Dominic Solanke. Sources believe Spurs are ready to try to push through a £50 million plus deal before the transfer window closes on Thursday. The news comes after we exclusively revealed that Spurs were interested in signing the inform forward. This was a while ago. A few weeks ago, we were talking about this. Most of us were kind of not really sure how we felt about it. My initial thoughts on Dominic Solanke as a player, I like him. I do really like him. But is he going to be the guy that you really want to commit to for the next 4 or 5 years? He's a purple patch. Is it a purple patch, or has he finally got his chance to thrive in a system, in a team that is finally starting to play some really good football? That's the key question here. How much do you want to pay to find out? £50 million is a lot of money, but relative to how much we've already spent on Brennan Johnson, how much we spent on Richarlison, maybe it's not. I personally really like the player, but I know a lot of you are going to be saying, what are we doing? No to Dominic Solanke. No to the Solanke. Let's carry on with the story. Bournemouth have already rebuffed an inquiry from Newcastle this month about Solanke's availability, as well as rejecting interest from West Ham last summer. But Tottenham are prepared to test the Cherries' resolve over the next 2 days. It would take a huge bid to persuade Bournemouth to sell, but it is understood that Bournemouth are looking at potential replacements in the French and Belgian leagues in case an offer comes in that is too good to refuse. Solanke, 26, is the top scoring Englishman in the Premier League with 12 goals and signed a contract extension last September that runs until 2027. The former Chelsea and Liverpool forward is thriving under Bournemouth boss Andoni Iraola. But even the Cherries chief admitted before the window opened that he could not guarantee the future of Solanke and much admired defender Lloyd Kelly. This is the stats for the season, as you can see. Thank you, The Sun. They're bringing out all the things I need for the story here. 20 games, chances created 14, 12 goals, 1 assist. And it's pretty good, isn't it? 6.5 goal contributions every 10 games. Not bad. Shots on target, 23. Passes 271 and fouls 23. Areola said, Dom, Solanke, Lloyd Kelly, they are some of our best players for sure, but you never know what's going to happen every time the window is open. Of course, I want to keep our best players. If we are talking about these players, there is no doubt that they are playing really well. We'll see what happens. A week before Areola's comments, Bournemouth owner Bill Foley declared that the Vitality Stadium was closed and bolted when it came to key players leaving in January. But it appears that Tottenham may attempt to force it open before Thursday. So quickly, guys, whilst we just we move away from this article for a second, I want to show you the reason why it might make sense in terms of tempting Bournemouth, tempting Bill Foley, sort of testing their resolve. And it's because of their FFP situation. Now, we read earlier in the month that there was a number of clubs that were considering or considered to be close to the line. Bournemouth were there or thereabouts. Now, they're within the 3-year period, I believe, of Bill Foley being a new manager, so they get an additional bit of wiggle room with new investment into the club. However, they are pretty close. Let me show you, if I type in Bournemouth FFP issues, I'll show you on the screen right now. This is from last year. So this is this will be the middle year of their 3-year reporting period. Bournemouth revealed a pre-tax loss of over 55 million, which of course is the kind of bandwidth you're looking for. Not much in it. 55.5 million loss. Now, we haven't seen what their numbers are for this particular year, or sorry, for last year, that would be represented and referred to in the coming days, weeks, or months. But obviously, the Premier League will know those results, but we don't necessarily know them yet. And I'm not entirely sure what their results were like the year before. They do get a slight bit of wiggle room because of the fact that Bill Foley is was a relatively new investor in the Football Club. But I do believe that they're right on the threshold. And when it comes to Dominic Solanke specifically, and this might be where Daniel Levy is, if there is truth to this story, figuring it out. We've spoken about the kind of difference between homegrown players and academy players, the pure profit, all of those things. And I think sometimes there's a little bit of confusion between if you have a player that's come through the academy and counts as pure profit and someone that comes into your club as homegrown, do they count as pure profit if you sell those players? Do they not? Dominic Solanke did not come through the Liverpool academy. But he joined, if you can see here, he joined Bournemouth from Liverpool in 2019 for 21 million euros. Let's just call it 20 million pound for argument's sake. So if he signed a 4 or 5 year deal, he's got an extension to his contract. He did sign an extension to his contract, but his initial contract would have been, let's say, 4 or 5 years, and that would have been amortized over that period. So that 20 million pound in the first 4 years of his contract would have been amortized at £5 million a year. So in terms of the value on Bournemouth's books, he's only going to have about 5, maybe £6 million worth of unamortized value on Bournemouth's books. And so if they were to have their hands tempted, or if they were to have their heads turned, I should say, by a £50 million bid from someone like Tottenham Hotspur, then whilst it wouldn't count as pure profit because he didn't come through the academy, in terms of amortized value and the net asset appreciation that's still left on the books, then it almost does feel like the vast majority, 95% of that money that would come in a £50 million transfer would go against the FFP number and would get them out of trouble. Now, Bournemouth this particular season are not really in a situation where they're going to face any threat of relegation. Let's have a quick glance towards the Premier League table. They currently find themselves in 13th place. They have only got 25 points. They probably need another 15 points to get to be sure of safety, and they're only at the moment 7 points off of safety. But they're playing the sort of football that you would assume that they're not going to face or find themselves in too much difficulty. And knowing, of course, that there's a good chance that Nottingham Forest and Everton may also find further points deductions because of their breaches of FFP, then I guess the conversation with Bill Foley and Areola will have to be whether or not they feel like they can survive the rest of this season without Dominic Solanke. And if so, will they have enough money then to be able to make sure that first and foremost that they're safe? And as the article suggests, that they can then go into France or Belgium or one of those leagues to be able to find a replacement. Now, whether or not they have enough time to do it with only, 48 hours, less than 48 hours left in the window, it remains to be seen. However, you can see the logic from a financial perspective as to why it might make sense for Bournemouth to cash in if a bid was too good to turn down. Now, whether or not there's too much time left or enough time left to get it done, that remains to be seen. I'd be very suspicious about thinking if that can happen. And again, I made the point earlier on in the window. I don't particularly want. I made the point earlier on in the day. It was on the video I did this morning. I don't particularly want Tottenham Hotspur to be going after last-minute deals and committing to 4 or 5 years on, high net worth players, unless it has been a part of a plan where Tottenham have spent time with the scouting team, with the various departments in the club that are identifying the right talent going forward. If they have identified Dominic Solanke as a suitable fit for this system, if they think there's a chance of getting it done, if all of those boxes are ticked, then I'm okay with it. However, Tottenham certainly do need a forward. Tottenham certainly do need a striker in the summer at least. But whether or not Dominic Solanke is the right guy, I'll leave that up to you. I'd love to know your thoughts. Are you enamored with the player? Can you see the logic? I personally am a fan of Dominic Solanke. I do think he offers quite a lot. In terms of statistics, they don't really tell a sensational story. This is Dominic Solanke's scout report over the last 365 days. Obviously, it's against the top 5 leagues. And so for a team that is struggling or has generally struggled last season and in the first half of this season, they're starting to do better. And Dominic Solanke certainly has got his numbers much, much better this season. But you can see that he's not, in terms of doing the things that you would hope from a well-rounded striker that can link up play, You're not really seeing too much of that in his passing stats. He's very much used at the very end of the moves on the counter attack. He gets the ball, runs, and does what he does what he can do with it. And obviously, he does convert at a significantly improved rate this season versus last season. In fact, let me see if I can get that number for you. Keep an eye. Remember what this sort of thing looks like. This is over the last 365 days. Let's have a look and just see what it's like in the last in this season alone. And when you look at just this season alone, all of a sudden, his numbers, the green bars of recovery, the green shoots start to come up in terms of goals, total shots, goals to shots on target as a ratio is in the top 10% relative to the Premier League from this season. His passing stats still not sensational by any stretch of the imagination, nor is his kind of link-up play. I don't know how much of a defensive issue we're going to be looking at or needing him to analyze. But look, like I say, the stats don't tell a fantastic story as a well-rounded player, but you have to bake in the context around what it is that his job is at Bournemouth, what he's asked to do and how Bournemouth play. And, you know, in terms of output, he's up there with the very best. £50 million is a lot of money for a striker. Bear in mind when you're, you know, coming up with your own conclusion of whether you'd like this one or not, that the striker market is very high demand, very short supply. There just isn't that many around. And he, of course, would come in and sit as a homegrown player, which helps for our homegrown number, both in the Premier League and in hopefully Europe next season. I guess it comes down to whether or not you think there's value for money, whether or not there's enough time in the window for us to do it, whether or not Bournemouth would be open-minded enough to do it for the reasons I've already laid out, and whether or not you think he can continue his step up and whether he would fit this particular system and be able to get on the end of it. And right now, Tottenham are looking for someone who's a clinical finisher. And Dominic Solanke, for me, this year at least, this season at least, has really shown his capabilities in getting the ball in the back of the net. And his season's successes have been very much linked with and instrumental in Bournemouth's success, relative success for them, at least this season. It's an interesting one. It's a very strange one to see at 11 o'clock at night, 11:30 at night. I thought I'd get it up and talk you through it. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Dominic Solanke, The Sun, Sky Sports are all reporting right now. Dominic Solanke to Tottenham for £50 million. It could be the deadline day story that we were looking for, we were hoping for. Are we a little bit suspicious of the fact that Ange Postecoglou did come out during this press conference today and said, we're pretty much done. It would be incredibly unlikely to think that there's any more players coming in. What I would say, just the final thoughts on it before I go to bed is I like the player. I don't mind the player. I just don't necessarily want us to be doing this unless he has been on a shortlist for a long time and everybody in Tottenham Hotspur, all the heads have got together and think that he is a perfect fit for our system. If this is just an opportunity rather than a thought through plan, then I don't like it. I don't want it because, as I said earlier, short-term solutions lead to long-term problems. He won't be cheap, not in wages, nor in contract length, nor in transfer fees. So it has to be right. And I'm not sure if this one is. I think he's going to divide the fan base. Let me know your thoughts, if it's true, if you believe it, and whether you'd like to see it happen. Like, subscribe, and comment, guys. And as always, come on, you Spurs.